Good evening and welcome to the All Portable Discussion Zone, the bi-weekly podcast focused on amateur radio portable ops, QRP, home brewing, and everything in between. My name is Charlie. FCC call sign is November Juliet 7 Victor, and I am your host. And with me this evening are my Operators Roundtable co-hosts Dan, KC7MSU. Afternoon, morning, afternoon, Dan, and Brian, W7JET.
Hello, everybody.
If you enjoy the show, you can find us on all major podcast platforms as well as YouTube and Discord. We'd love to hear from you. You'll find links to those platforms along with any items we mentioned in today's episode in the show notes. And so this is another Operators Roundtable episode where we expand on the conversation beyond just portable ops and dive into a wider range of ham radio topics. And so it's been, I guess, about a month, and here we are again. And so why don't you get us going, Brian? Tell us what you've been up to, and we'll go around the horn and see what everybody's been up to.
So let's see, what have I been up to? Well, I've been working on a lot of stuff out at the contest station when I go out there, doing a lot of big upgrades to our receive antenna system. For We have a very large beverage farm out there, covers about 12 acres, and it's eight bidirectional antennas, so technically 16 different directions that it goes in, but it's eight wires. And we're upgrading the control from something that was built to a commercial system, and troubleshooting a few directions that aren't working quite right. So that's been the big project as far as that goes at the station, and then here at the W7JET Superstation, been doing a few things here as well, upgrades, moving some equipment around, and getting ready for the warmer months. Chasing Bouvet, which is over now. I was one of 179 people in the world to get Bouvet on 160 meters,
Yeah,
and
congratulations.
Nice.
I actually shared a screenshot of it and shared it with our friends over at amateurlogic.tv. And if you haven't seen amateurlogic.tv, you should really check it out on YouTube. It's one of the longest running ham radio YouTube programs, and they're a lot of fun to watch, and they're a good group of guys, and you learn
And
a lot too.
and we follow
And
their model, right?
yes, and we've actually adopted their model because I think it's a good one, and best practices are always the best way to go. So we do follow their model a little bit. They actually reached out to me and asked me if I would do a video tour of the our station out in Safford. So I'm going to be doing that next week. When I'm out there, I'll be taking some video and putting the drone up and getting some aerial footage of the station itself. So that'll be fun. So if you are a follower of amateurlogic.tv, look for that in the future, and we'll probably also show that same video here on the channel at some point in the future. So that's really the long. Oh, I did do a soda today. So I was
Oh,
out on top of Porter Mountain today and ran CW on 15, 20, 40, and I did 10 meters, but I didn't get any takers. I actually even plugged in the microphone. So
ooh.
Wow.
if the gravitational pull of the Earth felt a little weird at around 17:30 Zulu this morning, that's because I plugged in a microphone and actually did some voice on HF. I know that's hard to believe.
Wow.
And I worked three stations on the East Coast between 20 and 40 meters. And actually, this kind of blew my mind a little bit. So, and I was probably about 17, 15 Zulu on 20 meter CW. I hear a J call calling me, and I'm like, it's not the right time for that to be Japan on really on 20 meters for sure. That's more of an afternoon thing. And sure enough, it was a JA. So I worked a Japanese station, Juliet Gulf Zero Alpha Whiskey Echo, and we worked. It was fun. So
That's awesome.
that was pretty cool. I've not had a JA yet, or I shouldn't say that.
Yeah.
I've had JAs before. I just haven't had one in a while. And at 10 o'clock in the morning on 20 meters, that's a really unusual contact. So most likely that was probably a long path contact on 20-meter CW, but it's still pretty cool. So I enjoyed that a lot, and he was there was a lot of QSB, and it was definitely one of those ones. I'm like, I I shouldn't be working Japan right now at this time of day from Arizona on 20 meters. So let me make sure I'm getting this right and I'm not hearing things. But it was definitely a JA, so that was kind of cool.
I
Yeah,
have
it's
yet to work a JA station off from a summit yet, so I'm looking forward to finally getting one.
yeah, that's it's always nice to do that for sure. Um, Yeah, good. What about Brian? I don't know. Did you want to mention also your negotiating skills for the club as well?
Oh, yeah. So, this is a little bit more inside amateur radio baseball here in Arizona. Our club has a repeater site, two repeater sites, and one of them is a mountaintop site that was under a different owner, and he was very ham radio friendly, and we kind of had a gentleman's agreement with him, and he's kind of retiring from stuff, and he decided that he was going to sell the property. And long story short, new owner, new lease, and we went back and forth for a little bit, and ended up getting the club a very respectable deal, so we can stay on top of the hill. Because some of the early rumors of what other people were being told, it was going to be completely unsustainable for us to stay up there at that number. But
Yeah,
at the end of the day, we only went up $75 a month.
that's
So
good.
so
Good.
that's
That's good for
that's
the
a
club.
that's a good thing for the club. And for those that are unfamiliar with the repeater system, it's one of the most active repeaters the in the Phoenix metropolitan area, and it's also one of the largest clubs in the Phoenix metropolitan area as well. And it serves a lot of people. And the footprint of that repeater goes out for almost 90 miles out to the west. It's got excellent coverage out to the west, and we would have lost a pretty significant footprint had we have not been able to stay up on top of the hill. So plus, I was one of the people that got us up there early on, before the system actually went active. That site, I played a big role in getting that going. So it was personally, it was important to me, to keep that up there, because I didn't want to see something that we put so much work and money and time and a lot of effort into getting to the point of where it's at right now, where it's basically runs nearly fault free, 365 days a year. And it would have been a bummer if we had to take it all down. So
Yeah.
it's good that that's up and going.
Yeah. Well, good. It sounds like you've been had a good month and have had a lot of good things going on ham radio wise. All
Oh
right.
yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Brian. For me, it's been kind of a unusual, not a typical month for me. I've been doing some ham radio stuff, but it hasn't been like you know, my normal typical stuff, because typically I'll hit several summits and go out and do some summits on the air, some parks on the air. But honestly, I haven't had an activation since January. I've been doing other things. I have had some work stuff where I took a trip to Florida, to Orlando, and I had thought about taking a radio out there and maybe doing a Parks on the Air and getting that state in the books for Parks on the Air. Obviously, they don't have any summits out that way, but I've been to this conference two or three times before, and I just knew that it just wasn't going to work out. It's just not enough time between when the conference ends each day and I have to get, my meals and then get back to the hotel. It's just not enough time. So anyway, didn't do any of that. But what I have done is one, I've been working on getting some really good interviewers or guest interviews for this podcast. And I've also been working on the signal generator that I've been working on, and I actually got it built finally, and it's working. So I'm excited about that. It's just a homebrew from a scratch signal generator, based on Doug DeMoss' design from many years ago. But I did that, and then also the Ham Radio Duo sent me a kit for a paddle, and I put that together and tested it, and it's ready to go. I'll be taking that out to our Ozarkon adventure coming up in a week or so, and reviewing that. And so looking forward to that. Other than that, I think I've been on the radio doing some chasing. I've chased several people on summits, so I have been doing some chasing for SOTA and for Parks on the Air. But Bouvet missed my opportunity. I was talking to Brian, and he's like, "You should get on between this window, and you should do this." And I'm like, "Okay, I'll do it." And then that was the day that they packed up and said, "With this, we're done." So I missed my opportunity. Oh well, you know what? Next time around, there'll probably be another $1.7 million adventure out that way, and we can make it happen next time. So, all right, Dan, it's off to you.
All right. Quite a bit. We're as a group with our club, we're continuing to work on our ARIS contact with the Arizona State University Preparatory Academy. which has been a lot of fun. We actually did a practice run through with the kids. We had one person, we did a all on simplex and had one person act as an astronaut, and we had the kids run through all their questions and get used to asking their question and being close to the microphone and all that. They did a great job. Matter of fact, we're doing that again Saturday. Um, so giving them a little bit of practice time as well as for us. What else? I've been working on the ham shack, so that work continues. I got probably 3/4 of the drywall up, and probably finish that part of the project up in the next 2 weeks. So I can at least hopefully get out there and set a radio in there and kind of at least be able to make some contacts before everything else gets finished out. As Charlie said, getting ready to travel to OzarkCon. We're going to do some soda summits out that way. So be watching for some posts as far as when we're on the air, and hopefully we can get some contacts. It'll be the first time I've done a East Midwest East kind of soda summit, so I'm looking forward to that.
Cool. Yeah, good.
Good deal.
All right. Well, folks, tonight we have all kind of come with our own little topics that we wanted to talk about. So we'll just go around. We'll start with Brian. I think Brian, I can't remember what you're talking about, Brian. You're a,
I was just going to talk about some strategies for chasing
oh
DX
yeah,
and working DX expeditions and the tools and stuff that are out there.
right.
And
So,
mainly, I'm going to do mainly talking because I'm not going to show much since we're trying to gear this more toward everybody, so people that can listen on
yep.
the podcast as well as on video. So you get to listen, you guys get to listen to my my voice more, and I don't know if that's good or bad, but
It's probably bad considering it's you.
yes, exactly.
No, and then after Brian's little discussion, then I'll talk a little bit about my adventures at the Scottsdale Hamfest and kind of some of the things I found. Then we'll go over to Dan, and Dan's going to talk about what?
I'm going to talk about first time traveling with amateur radio,
Like flying with amateur
flying
radio.
with flying with radio and batteries and all that fun stuff.
Okay, good. Sounds like a good topic roundtable here tonight. So, all right, Dan, Brian, go ahead and take it away. It'll be good discussion, I think.
So let's talk about the Bouvet de-expedition that happened recently. Bouvet was interesting. They they got on the island, they got set up, they got going. One of the things that was really important with Bouvet was knowing when they're there and when to work them and how to handle the propagation. And one of the things, especially on the western part of the United States, on the higher bands in the morning, so 10, 15, 10 through really 20 meters, the best path, if you didn't know, is actually long path. If you have a directional antenna, for those that don't know what long path is, it basically just means opposite the shortest path. So if I'm trying to work New Mexico, I would point my antenna from Arizona to the east, and I would work New Mexico that way. But if New Mexico, because of the propagation, it's better to actually go the other way, I would point the antenna to the west and work New Mexico the long way. Hence the reason why it's called long path. And in the mornings, Bouvet was actually really strong on, and when I say really strong, we're speaking relatively to being below the noise floor to being audible. Um, on the long path, especially on 12 meters and 17 meters and 15 and even 20. And usually their peak time was right around for Arizona around 1600 Zulu, which is about 2.5 hours ish after our sunrise. And both I all the times that I worked them, so I wanted to try to get them at least each band that I can get them on once. I wasn't looking for every mode possible. I wanted to get them at least one CW contact, and that was it. So I worked them from home on a hex beam at 40 feet, two element, which is a 2 element beam. It's not super high gain. It doesn't have a ton of rejection. It's just a very simple wire antenna compared to other things. And I worked them long path at 5 minutes after 9 on 17 meter CW. And that was an interesting contact because I wasn't, there was a lot of QSB and there was a fair amount of noise. So I would hear them, I wouldn't hear anything. then I would hear them. So I threw my call out. I heard most of my call come back to me, but not enough where I was 100% sure. So I said, all right. I sent my call again with the signal report. So I sent my call W7JET on CW with 599 thank you. And as soon as I finished, I heard a TU and they moved on to the next one. So I'm like, pretty sure I worked them because the timing was right on it and they were working split. So I threw it in the log and later on in the day, they were doing uploads about 19 between 1900 and 2000 Zulu every day. So they uploaded the log a few hours later, and sure enough, I was in the log on 17 meter CW. And that was really the only contact I had with them where I couldn't say I was 100% sure I got them. But the main reason why I got them was I was patient, I listened on the band, and I knew the path, I knew the propagation. So if you're using a station, again, my home station, I'm not talking about SAF, my contest station that I have access to. My home station is modest. It's better than a wire. I'm not going to say that I have a dipole and I'm knocking it out of the park with a dipole. I have a little bit more than a dipole, but I don't have a mega station in my backyard with a huge tower and a bunch of stuff. I have good radios inside the house connected to good coax and all the proper bonding, and the station is built very well, but it is not a monster station. I also worked them at night on Saturday night, and this is a good example. This is a good um, what I would call a standard. So if you most people are going to have at least this or something close to this. Have an inverted V. It's a double bazooka antenna on 30 meters. And that antenna, the apex of that antenna sits at 28 feet. And the ends are about 6 feet off the ground. So we're not talking a high antenna. We're not talking about anything super fantastic. It's just a simple monoband double bazooka. And I worked them on 30 meter FT8 at about 10:15 or 5:15 Zulu in Arizona on FT8 without too much trouble. I think I maybe was working for about 10 minutes before I got a reply back on them. And that wasn't any long path or anything. That was just calling with a non-directional antenna that the ends weren't even oriented north-south. They were actually oriented east-west.
Can I ask a
So
question?
yeah, sure.
Yeah. So when you were talking about you were working on CW earlier on 17, and
Yeah.
then you also on 30, you're talking about FT8. I'm curious. I didn't even get a chance to listen and hear the pileups.
Mhm.
Can you describe what the pileups were like? Was it just a solid blah or?
So if you look, the easiest way to visualize the pileup is to look at a band scope of what the pileup looked like. And it was just, you'd see very bright areas where people were calling. And if you look at the band scope, you can kind of judge about where you should put yourself in the listening up frequency. And for those that have never run split before, traditionally, when you're working a DX station, the DX station is going to be calling on one frequency and listening up. And they'll say, you'll hear them give the call, and they'll say up one or up, you'll up five or up 5 to 10 or whatever they think they need to do, and they spread it out a lot. The average CW spread for them was anywhere between 8 and 15 kilohertz. So we're talking a
Wow.
significant spread. And they would sort of move through that. And if you have a band scope or you have two receivers, you can listen and you could hear the DX station working in one ear, and you can hear the upside, the calling frequency on the other end. And you can listen and you can hear them call, KC7 MSU. And then you can listen and see, okay, well, I just heard KC7 MSU reply, so I know that the DXpedition is listening right now. If they were on, they were using 7030 for their calling frequency and they were listening up 7038. I know that he's listening up 7038, and you can listen. You can kind of figure out what his pattern is for how he's moving up and down through the listening portion of the band, the up frequency or the split, and kind of place yourself in a spot so when he moves the VFO again, he happens to land on you and he gets you on that call.
So you're
Um,
saying, and I didn't realize this, but I'm just for the benefit of
yeah.
listeners. So you're saying that a de-expedition won't sit on a single frequency, but will kind of move up and down a frequency just to
For listening, the transmit frequency will stay where it is. It's going to stay, and I'm just using 7030 for the number because it's a good number. So 7030 is where they're transmitting on 40 meters, and they're listening up. So that means that and you'll hear them say, it's if it was my call, it'd be W7JET, up five, and you might hear them type up five, or if it's a voice transmission, you'll hear them say, W7JET listening up 5 to 10. and then they're listening, and then you'll hear a November Juliet station, November Juliet, November Juliet 7 Victor 5-9, and you need to be ready because they are going to give you two calls and they're going to move on.
And that's that whole thing is that they're moving it up and down is because if they just were listening on a single frequency, there would be such a pile up and so many stations all on that same frequency, they wouldn't be able to pick anybody out, right?
It would be nothing but constant noise, and it
Yeah.
would the efficiency of the operator to put cues in the log would just not happen.
So for
They'd have a really
The,
even the best CW operator is not going to be able to pull if 100 people are calling on the same frequency at the same time. All they're going to hear is noise. They're not
yeah.
they might
Yeah.
get lucky and pull one or two calls out, but it's going to be a blank show, and it's going to be frustrating for everybody, including the people calling and the operator especially.
Yeah, so for a new
Otherwise, they
person,
might as well be listening on the same frequency that they're transmitting on.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so for a new person who isn't really familiar with, and maybe not even can't figure out very well even how to set up their radio on split, um, I think that in my case, I was listening on one frequency but then I realized later on, yeah, there's a strategy. If you kind of if you can figure out where they're turning their knob, in what
Yes.
direction, you can kind of get to get to the
Right.
point where they'll kind of get to you, right?
Yeah, well, if you have a great tool that's out now, most modern radios have is a band scope. So having the band scope and actually being able to see where the activity is and where the bright lines are, you can kind of figure out where the pile is moving just by where the bright lines are. And then you kind of have to look and go, okay, well they keep moving up, and it looks like his spread is 10. So when he hits 7040, he goes back to the beginning, or he starts working back down the opposite direction. So sometimes they'll roll all the way back to one up. Usually for CW, they'll do up one and then they'll move up from there. So they're using like 9 or 10 kilohertz up. They'll run back to the beginning and let work their way back up, or they just go back the other direction and they work their way all the way down and they just sweep back and forth, high to low, low to high. And you just have to kind of look and see, and you get the feel for what's going on. And sometimes, just being off just a little bit off frequency to change the tone of what your CW sounds like is enough to get you picked out of the pile. And for Charlie and I, we've had CW pileups. We get them all the time when we're doing soda. You get 4 or 5 people calling you at once, and sometimes that one person just off frequency enough is how you pick them out. And when you start working, larger stations, especially when you're doing contests, or you're at a contest station or something where there's a lot of people calling you because you got a loud signal and you're easy to pick out, the same thing will happen. And the experienced contesters, you'll hear them move off frequency just enough so that their tone is different and you pick them out because the radio filters it out differently. It all depends on how the receiver is in the radio and how you have your filters and stuff adjusted.
So if you don't have a waterfall display, an SDR works just as well for that,
Oh
I
yeah,
would imagine.
absolutely. So the Kenwood 890, which is my primary HF radio at home, does not have a second receiver in it, but it does have a port for an SDR. So sometimes, depending upon what's going on, I'll also run the SDR, and I'll have that piped into my other ear so I can listen to the SDR, and I'll use the SDR to kind of listen to what's going on the transmit frequency to confirm where I think they're at. But I've gotten accustomed to and experienced with just using the band scope and being able to read the band scope. But if you have an SDR like an SDR Duo or a AirSpy or whatever, those work just fine. And you can very easily with a simple um, audio mixer pipe that into your headset where you can put the radio on one ear and the SDR on the other and have some diversity receive. Some radios like the Elecraft K3 actually have a diversity receive function, so you can listen to the antenna in one ear and the receive antenna in the other, and then adjust the volumes so the receive antenna is favored because it's got a higher volume, and you can tell where they're coming from based on what you have in your ear. Like for the contest station, we have that ability to do that for all the bands, and on 160 and 80 specifically, we use that quite a bit. In fact, there's times that I might have the actual transmit antenna all the way down, and I'm only listening on the beverages and on the opposite ear, and then I'll make some adjustments if there's if one's favoring the other. Sometimes you just can't tell. You'll be bouncing through the beverages because the beverage is pointed in the direction that you think the signal's coming from. Sometimes the way it comes in and it lands, it actually comes in better on a beverage that's 180 degrees out of phase or off of the original the direction that the station is actually calling.
Yeah, and there's quite a few good SDR stations that are internet accessible as well, which is pretty nice.
Absolutely, yes. And technically, though, and this is be a contest too, and it's everything's the honor system, but technically,
Yep.
if you're doing it for DXCC or for a contest, the receive antenna has to be within 1,000 feet of the station you're operating.
Good to know. Did not realize that.
Yes. So again, the ARRL police aren't out running radar and pulling people over because everything we do in amateur radio is on the honor system and it's based off of your own personal integrity. But that is actually a requirement. Now, there's nothing that says that you can't use a remote station. If you have a friend that has a remote station in northern Maine and you want to work some expedition over in that's going to come in a lot better in northern Maine, there's nothing that says you can't work them from northern Maine, and that would count toward your DXCC credit because as long as it's inside the continental United States, it's good to go. Now, if you were doing that, let's say I need Maine to finish up my worked all states, I'll just go on the Maine remote and I'll work somebody from Maine in Maine. That doesn't for worked all states or um, for the VUCC, which is the VHF awards. That has to be, and I'm not going to give you the exact numbers because I can't quote them chapter and verse, but there's specific requirements on where you have to be for those contacts to count for your home QTH.
Okay.
Yeah, I think for DXCC it has to be 50-mile radius from your whichever station you're using, and has to be the same station, that same station for all of them. Yeah.
Yeah, you mean for worked all states?
Yeah, for worked all states. Yeah.
Okay.
Not
Yeah,
DXCC.
you said
Yeah.
DXCC. I just wanted to
No.
make sure so we don't confuse people. That's all.
Yeah.
Um,
I
yeah.
got dyslexic.
It's all good. It's all good. Just what we were talking about the other day. Want to keep us all honest.
Yeah.
So but anyway, for FT8, there's a thing called Super Fox, and I'm sure not a lot of people have heard it. If actually, if you're trying to work the Sable Island DXpedition right now, and this is at 0200 Zulu on March 20th, 2026, which is when we're filming this. They are currently running on 40 meters on FT8 using SuperFox. And SuperFox was created to allow multiple streams, and it looks very different. If you were to see it on a band scope, you just see these little data blocks all over the screen. It's got an interesting sound to it. It doesn't sound like traditional FT8, and it has an encryption key basically, and it's not exactly an encryption key, but for the purposes of this conversation, that's what we'll call it. And it's individual to that particular DXpedition, and it makes it so it's hard for people to pirate the call sign because yes, there are people out there that don't have enough time on their to do other things and or have too much time to do other things, and they QRM and spoof DXpeditions to screw with people. And the SuperFox kind of makes it harder for them to do that. So right now they're actually coming through. Let me turn the volume up. Maybe I'll actually hear what it sounds like when
Yeah,
it's coming through.
that's
That's the
genius.
regular. Yeah. So let's see. Let me wait till you hear the. So that's. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Can you hear that?
There. Yeah.
That's the sound of SuperFox right there.
Sounds like a robot.
Yep. So that's SuperFox right there, and that's going on right now. And SuperFox, you have to have WSJTX that has the most current version with SuperFox in it, which I think it's version 2.7.0. And it's just a matter of clicking a couple buttons. You don't have to do anything on your end other than turn on the ability to be able to receive and decode that. The actual key is something that the expedition takes care of, and they're the ones that'll be setting all that up and utilizing all that. You just have to have it on the right way, and you'll be able to work them. And then there's another version of FT8 where for multiple streams called MHSV, and you can't use Fox and Hound mode with that because if you do, you won't get a valid confirmation. You just run regular FT8 mode for that and just do a normal QSO. If they're doing regular Fox and Hound, they're not super Fox, then you have to be in Fox Hound mode, and that changes the way. So if you have to kind of understand what way the D Expedition is running and what mode they're running to be able to decode them properly and be able to respond to them properly so you get credit for the call. The next thing that's always useful is Club Log. And if you're not using Club Log and you don't have an account on Club Log and you plan on chasing an ADX, I highly recommend setting up a Club Log account. It's free, there's no charge. They do accept donations. This whole thing is run by a couple of individuals out of the goodness of their heart for the love of DX. So throw them a couple of bucks every year. I do. And I think everybody should. It helps them keep things going. And it is a very, very, very valuable tool. And a lot of the expeditions will post your calls on there. Some of them have a live log. So there's no more, am I in the log? Well, you can look, and a lot of times, boom, you'll be in the log. Like you'll know as soon as you complete the call, it's already on the log and you're already there. They also have a live stream where you can look and see exactly where they are on the band. Like right now, CY0S is on 160 meter CW, 80 meter FT8, 60 meter FT8, 40 meter FT8, 30 meter FT8, and 20 meter CW right now. And you can see them working the contacts. You can even see yourself when you call them. So it's a good tool. It's not hard to use, and there's a lot of resources there. And then at the end of the D Expedition, you can order your QSL card through them, through the QRS system. So there's no shoving your card in an envelope, because I assure you that almost all D Expeditions, they don't want your card. So
Yeah.
it saves you the time and trouble of having to mail it out. You just usually, depending upon the D Expedition, it's going to be anywhere between $3 and $5 for a QSL card. Bouvet was considerably more, but Bouvet cost $1.7 million. They were asking for $15 for a QSL card. And given all the trouble that they went through to do that, I don't think that's unreasonable.
So does that come with a Bouvet Island postmark stamp?
Yeah, yep, the post office there on Bouvet Island, absolutely. They actually laid all the cards down on the ground, and then they used some bait, and the penguins walked right across them.
There you go.
That's they picked them all up. They long lined them off at the helicopter with the long line cargo net, and put it back on the ship. So
sounds good.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. So. And if you believe that, I've also got a 10 kilowatt amplifier that runs on 110 and doesn't get hot that I'd like to sell you as well.
I'm all in. Yeah. No. All right. Is that your deal, or you got anything else?
I think that's pretty much it. I mean, it's just the main thing with all the DX and all this stuff is if you want to get good at it, you got to do it. It's just like everything else. With the CW, just rip the Band-Aid off and start doing it. And these things as well. Sometimes you're gonna work the station, sometimes you're not. But the main thing is understanding where you are, what the propagation is, and when to expect to work them. If you think you're gonna work an expedition at 12 o'clock in the afternoon on 160 meters, that's not gonna happen. But if you want to work an expedition in the Pacific from the West Coast on 20 meters or 10 meters or 15 meters or 17 meters, you're going to be doing that toward the later half of the day. And you should know that already if you've been doing propagation. You understand when you start seeing different countries come in and what time of day and what bands. So just get on there and start working stuff.
Cool. All right. That was really good. I actually learned some good stuff there, Brian. Appreciate you sharing. So for my deal, we had the Scottsdale Hamfest this last weekend, and I was thinking about, and before I went to the Hamfest, I was thinking about, okay, what strategy am I going to do this time? What am I looking for? And it got me thinking how other people might do what strategy they might have, and just to tell you about my strategy and how it's changed over time. I mean, there have been times where I've been looking at a Hamfest. I'm looking forward to going to a Hamfest, and I have a specific item in mind, like a bencher paddle or an antenna mast of some sort. And I'll go to a Hamfest, and I usually, every Hamfest I've gone to, I've had something I've been looking for, and some sort of strategy that I've been going for. In fact, this one, I have some pictures of some things that I got, so I'll try to describe them to those of you who aren't watching the YouTube video, but are on the podcast. But for example, last Hamfest I went to before the Scottsdale Hamfest was the Marana Hamfest, and I was specifically looking for an LCR meter, and as it turns out, I went there and I found one for a really good price, and so I was very happy. And that isn't always what happens, but sometimes you have to hit multiple Hamfests. But I'm going to kind of go through what my strategy was for this Hamfest, and then I'd like to kind of get your guys' opinions about what you do. But and one last thing, there have been times where my strategy for a Hamfest is to go and socialize with people and not buy anything. And so there's been that, and anywhere from that to I've got multiple things that I'm looking for that I want to purchase. But let me share my screen here, and I'll try to describe for those of you who are audio only what you'll be seeing. So when I arrived at the Hamfest, the first thing that caught my eye was this box of meters. And the reason I caught my eye was because I am planning on maybe making a homebrew meter of some sort. And I thought, oh, well, these might be great. But what I did was I actually asked a friend of mine who does home brewing. I'm like, did you see those, that box for $20? And he goes, yeah, but you can get them way cheaper. So I didn't buy these because he says that there's a few places out on the internet that you can get them way cheaper. And actually, I didn't have a project for it at the moment, but I was tempted to buy these. Also, I was interested in these little tubs of all kinds of little resistors and transistors and things. Typically, I wouldn't buy them, but for $10, look at the size of that. And there was all different kinds of transistors and resistors and different components that I was interested in. But I actually think I have my bins are kind of full, and I just was kind of an interesting find there.
Those are my favorite boxes to buy right there. Those, yeah. You have some of those out there. I'll usually come home with one.
Yeah. So then the next thing is I got to turn this around. So this is a bin of DC jacks. And it's another thing that I was looking for. I have a project, you guys know the project I'm working on, the signal generator, and I was looking for a specific DC jack that would fit a hole that I've already have drilled, and these fit the number. But what's funny is I had already bought on Amazon a pack of 10 of these, and Amazon at a pack of 10, they were cheaper than the 50 cents, and they were identical. So I passed on these. But here's another thing that I think is really cool that I went through this bin of knobs because I have a polyvaricon capacitor, and I also have a 4-position switch for that project that I'm working on, and neither one of those components came with knobs. And so I pawed my way through this bin of knobs and was able to get what I was looking for. And I think it was like 6 knobs for like a couple bucks. So it was a good deal. That's what it kind of looks like.
Vintage knobs are getting to be very scarce now too. So if you find some that are in good shape, I try to pick them up. Otherwise, you could always, 3D print your own.
Yes.
But I still prefer vintage knobs myself.
It's funny you say that because the little wafer discs that come with a polyvaricon capacitors are really annoying to me. I think they're dumb, and I think they're stupid and not very useful. And I actually asked a friend. I went into the North American Soda Slack group. They have a 3D printing channel in there, and I said, "Hey, anybody can help me with that?" And sure enough, somebody stepped forward and said, "Hey, I'll print you an adapter so that you can use a different knob on the polyvaricon." So that was pretty cool. So also other things that you can find at the Hamfest are tools. This is a bin of some bits. Let me see if I can turn this the right way. So these drill bits, and I have a project where I don't want to use my good drill bits, and it turns out that these drill bits right here, they're stepper drill bits. I grabbed a couple of them. They were, I think, $1 a piece or something like that. So that's a good deal. They were in this bin here of just kind of tools, you can see. But if a lot of times you'll look at a bin and you'll think, ah, this just looks like a bunch of junk. But sometimes if you dig through, you'll find some really good things. So there they are. I actually found in that same bin some what are they called? These surgeon scissors or whatever they are. Whatever they are.
They are
Clamp? Yeah,
medical
clamp.
strips.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can't.
He have stats.
Hemostat. That's what it is.
There
Yeah.
you go.
Hemostat. Yeah, hemostats. Anyway, I can use those in my projects as well as these 2 bits, and so I got those. Another thing that I like to always look for is books, and you'll see this bin. None of these books right here that you see were of any interest to me, but I have found. Let me stop sharing my screen for just a minute because I want to share with you. By going through the books bins, I have found this book, which is Doug DeMoss' notebook on QRP projects. It's out of print and a very good book and in high demand. I found even harder to get Drew Diamond VK3XU radio projects for the amateur. There's a bunch of really cool homebrew stuff in there, and then of course there's the experimental methods of RF design. I think I paid maybe $3 for this book. A lot of times people don't know what they have, and you can get really good deals on some really good books. These are the ones that interested me because I'm interested in homebrew, and all 3 of these books are I reference a lot. So it's worth going and looking through sometimes. I think some of those bins. I don't know if you guys have done that before or not, but like I said, this one doesn't really show much.
Yeah, I've gone through and found some gems like that as well. One of my favorite things that I really enjoy still are paperback data books for semiconductors. There's just something about, I mean, and most of them are still relevant. Most of those parts are still made, still used. They're not always by the original manufacturers anymore, but having those around is pretty nice at times too.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I that's everybody kind of has their own interests and things that they are interested in. But yeah, for sure, that's definitely another find. Let me see if I can move forward on this and heat shrink. This big old box of heat shrink. Brian put me on to he has his mast that he uses, and he heat shrinks the whole dang thing, the whole mast. And I was looking for a big enough piece of heat shrink, and sure enough, here's one. This box is, I think, 4 feet tall or more. So yeah, it says right there 4 feet long. So Brian's going to show us maybe in a minute, or I don't know. He has a good.
Yep. I was going to say a better solar activator than me would have not forgot his pole this morning. So I had to actually throw a rope through a tree up on a quarter to get my antenna up. And it just dawned on me. I'm like, oh yeah, I never did look to see where that fell out of the backpack. So I'll have to find that later. It's probably in the closet.
Yeah, it's a good idea though to protect that. Something I needed for a previous project when I was building the direct conversion receiver was a speaker, an 8-ohm speaker. And look right here, for $1. I mean, I could have these things. This was a good deal here. I couldn't have got, if I would just wanted one speaker, I would have paid $1 there. I don't think with shipping and everything, I could have got it much cheaper anywhere else. But of course, I already had my speakers, so I didn't buy that. And then like they have these other bigger speakers here, pretty interesting. So you can find some pretty cool things for your projects. Here's another DC connector that I wasn't sure about because it didn't have any isolation. It's like I think the ground would go right to the whichever chassis you're using. So I wasn't sure I wanted to use that. Another speaker, and then some standoffs for mounting certain PCB boards. Found a couple of different versions of that just in a bin of other stuff, dollar bin. And then sometimes you find some cool things that you don't know what the heck they are. I mean, I know these are some sort of coils because obviously they look like coils, but I have no idea what they are. And I didn't buy one because of that. But these are pretty interesting. I don't know. What do you think they are? Just coils, huh?
Yeah,
I'd say tuning coils. I
It's
think.
a tuning coil for something. It could be from an AM transmitter even.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
a
beyond
plug-in
me.
because it looks to me like it's a plug-in for some kind of transmitter. It could even be for a receiver from an old radio. It might be a parted out old radio.
Yeah.
I'm sure that there's somebody right now looking at that, probably Gary, W0,
Mike November
looking at,
Alpha.
yeah, M&A looking at that,
Yeah.
going, yelling at, right, or will be yelling at the thing,
It's a
telling us
blah,
what it is.
blah. It's a blah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
that's built
So
on a vacuum tube mount, so that's a
yeah,
little
so
unusual. I've never seen one built that way.
that's why I said I'm pretty sure that Gary would be looking at that right now, going, it's this. What's wrong with you guys?
Exactly. Here's another thing. A $3 metal container. It's a kind of clamshell, so it kind of fits together. I didn't buy one of these, but I was tempted to because again, you're always looking for enclosures for your little projects, and it was a little bit too not. It wasn't tall enough, thick enough, I don't think, with all put a project in there, but it was something that I was looking for was enclosures as I was walking around and some sort something that I might be able to repurpose as an enclosure. Every time you go to a Hamfest, you see something strange and unusual, and I don't know what this is called. I'm sure again somebody will yell it out, but this navigation type thing, whatever it
Yeah,
is.
sextant, I think is
Yeah,
what they
sextant.
call them.
You think you're right. It's sextant. It was sitting there on the table, and I was like, "That's pretty cool. I'll never buy that." But I took a couple pictures of it, and
I
it
say,
was
easy guys, it's a family show here. Stop using my best words.
Of course, there's the guy that always has all of the meters. He
Yeah,
said,
I looked at
Yeah.
some of his stuff, and he was asked his prices were a little
"You can talk him
close
down."
to, yeah, they were close to retail.
Yeah, yeah, you can talk him down. He's sitting there in the truck, and I've got really good deals from him by talking down.
Okay.
He has a listed price, but he negotiates some stuff. Some stuff he won't budge on, but he has a bunch of these digital multimeters, and he has oscilloscopes and all kinds of stuff. He's the meter guy, and
Yeah.
I check his tables out all the time because there's some good stuff. In fact, he had a couple of signal generators this time, which was pretty cool.
Yeah,
Um,
those fluke meters are great. They're rugged, they last forever, and they stay in calibration long past their normal cal dates.
Yeah,
yeah.
I've got my rock solid Fluke now as well. I bought it used from a guy, met him in a parking lot. I'm pretty sure. Hopefully, it wasn't something that he stole out of somebody's garage, but it works good. Had it for a long time now.
Yeah, yeah. Let's see, what's next? Next one is this Nano VNA. You can order it online and pay shipping, or you might be able to just find one. I don't know what he was asking for this, but it looked like it was in good shape and it was a good one. There's the signal generators that he had and some power sources. And then here's some of the junk stuff. Now I was looking for some air variable capacitors and some like some of the ones that you just well, I guess that's what they're called, air variable capacitors, right?
Yeah, close enough.
So I was digging through the bins here, and well, there's another meter. I'm like, hey, this might work, but it was a little bit too rusty. But that was it down on the bottom of a bunch of stuff that was useless. But here they are, a bin of capacitors, and I was looking through them all. There's some already just still in their packages, and of course, I didn't know what the values of these were, but I just kind of eyeballed them, and I'm like, hey, these right here, they look like they're useful. So there's some trimmer pots and a couple of capacitors there. I decided to buy them and bring them home and experiment with them a little bit. Maybe they are in the right range that I would use in some sort of a project. But all those were $1. So I mean, like, I can't lose, right? $1 for all that. So why not? Anyway, yeah, that's the Hamfest stuff. We kind of got befuddled in between with my computer freezing. But anyway, so before we wrap this up, Brian, Dan, what are your strategies when you go into a Hamfest? What things didn't I cover that you guys like to do that might be good advice for people?
You know, for me, I'm unless I'm looking for something very, very specific, I usually walk around the Hamfest, and sometimes I'll stumble upon the left-handed tube tester that I didn't know I needed, or something along something odd like that. And I mean, it doesn't exist, but you understand what I'm saying. Just something odd. It's like, oh, that's really cool. I should get that. And that's kind of how I approach the Hamfest when I'm going to a Hamfest. It's 80% social and 20% me spending a few bucks on something I might need. Um, if it's a ham fest where there's specific groups there, or there's something that I can do to help the club make sure that that particular thing comes back, like I'll go and I'll make sure, like a full disclosure, the Superstition Amateur Radio Club Superfest has secured Ham Radio Outlet to make an appearance at
Nice.
the Superstition Superfest come November. So for all of those here in Arizona and who are maybe traveling to Arizona for that Hamfest come November, please, please, please make sure that you buy something from HRO. You don't, even if they don't have it, if you order it while you're at the Hamfest, all those things help make sure that HRO comes back next year and also comes back larger.
Yeah.
So, you know, they do a fair amount of money at the Hamfests when they do show up, but they only do that if people buy from them.
Yeah.
And HRO is a good company. You know, they have a lot of local stores around, and they're very good to the local ham groups. The one here in Phoenix is the one that I have the direct experience with, and they're excellent. And I am good friends with somebody higher up in the organization, and he is a top-notch person, and he's putting his effort behind being there. So that's a good one of the reasons why they are going to be there. So if you are coming to the Hamfest this year, save your pennies and come and make sure you buy something from HRO at the Hamfest. Even if you're going to order something, wait till the Hamfest and order it at the Hamfest. And you should do the same thing for your local Hamfests too. So if you're living in another state and there's going to be an organization there, make sure you partake. Make sure you order something from them because they will appreciate it.
Yeah. We'll turn the time over to Dan. You can add anything else for the Hamfest stuff and then take it over on your topic.
I'm a browser, unfortunately, and if I take cash with me, I will find something that I didn't think that I really needed. So, and I'm a big sucker for instrumentation. So test gear is one of the things that I just love. Even if it's broke, I'll revive it. So that's just how it goes for me. But as far as my topic goes, so as we've kind of discussed, Charlie and I are heading to Ozark Con, and that's starting off next week. And one of the things that we'll be doing is hitting a summit or two out there. So I have never actually tried to travel with amateur radio gear other than driving it. So this will be the first time that I'm going to fly with it. And I thought the whole thing was kind of interesting. I was kind of browsing through the TSA site looking for, well, what does it say about, amateur radio and stuff like that? Well, it just says radio. It doesn't say anything about amateur radio. And it says, carry on is fine. Didn't find anything specific to other things, like antennas and stuff like that. So I was a little bit disappointed. So I am going to be severely limited because I finally went out and bought a much smaller backpack in order to travel with. So I won't be able to jam it full with the kitchen sink and everything else.
Which is good.
Yeah, that's good. That's like a big change for me. So what I'm showing is primarily what I'm going to be taking with me. I'll have my tactical mast. So since it's kind of saying things like, you can't carry a baseball bat or any billy club or anything like that on in the cabin, this is going to go in my regular luggage, it sounds like. So I'll have to get that out when I get there. But one of the interesting things that I found was that I had ordered two Bioenno new 9 amp hour batteries. And I was thinking, well, yeah, that'll be good because I primarily carry that a lot of times. And I've also had a 6 amp hour battery, which is the same as this one. So I ended up buying new batteries because mine were originally purchased back in like 2016. And I figured it's probably about time to refresh them. Don't want to end up getting on top of a hilltop out of state and not being able to make contacts. So the thing that drove me back to buying another 6 amp hour one is the requirement that the watt hours needs to be under 100 or less. And 9 amp hour is like 108. Really close, but I didn't want to get there and squabble. So I got this one. So that's like 72 watt hours. So that's why I ended up with that. I'm going to take the KX3 and mic and accessories. I'm not really anticipating any problem with carrying the radio with me. Everybody kind of, there's a lot of literature and people have traveled with those kind of components, and I think TSA is pretty used to those kind of things. Antenna, I was kind of wondering about that, as far as keeping that in my backpack during the flight. And I've seen a few people who have commented that, hey, they didn't have any problem. So I'll have that with me as well as my little wire cords that I use to tie wrap my mask to whatever is available there. So, any of these things, I guess, if you get an agent that is unfamiliar, I guess, they could make a cause for using any of these things kind of as a weapon. But I think they've, with amateur radio operators, they've gotten pretty practical as far as what it is and why we do it, as well as carrying a copy of your FCC license. So I think that's a little bit of a help as well. But this will be the first time that I've traveled with this stuff, so it'll be interesting to see what happens as I go through the TSA line. I don't know, Charlie, you've flown with your radios before, correct?
Yeah, and Brian has too, I think, many times.
So for me, when I was still doing the charter thing and the airline, I always had my soda mast, my UKITS radio, and a battery with me, and the antenna, and that lived in my suitcase. And I did multiple sodas, and the only time I ever had any issue with security taking more than a casual look at my stuff was going from Scotland back down to London in the UK. And it was interesting. I got flagged by a woman at the beginning and got shuffled down to the end, and a very stern individual with a very strong Scottish accent just looked at me and said, "It was the woman, wasn't it?" And I said, "Yes." I said yes, and he goes, "Just put your stuff back in the bag. It's fine." And that was the end of it.
Yeah, my experience, I've traveled
So,
I haven't traveled internationally with a radio. I have been international, but not with a radio. But my domestic experience has been similar, the same. I've never had anybody really question anything. I do always put my mast and my trekking poles in my checked bags, just because I don't want to bother with it. But other than that, everything goes with me in my backpack and sits underneath the seat, so that I have it where, because I don't trust that if I check it, it's gonna be good. So
Yeah, I would not trust, couple $1,000 radio under the belly of the plane in any way, shape, or form. I would, don't know if it would come out just damaged or if it would just never come back. So,
yeah,
um,
the best assumption is if you have anything that's other than clothing, I would not ever check it. In fact, if you follow most of the DXpeditions, those guys, almost everything they carry, they try to make sure that if it can fit into an overhead bin and does not get checked.
yeah, yeah. And so what I'm taking to Ozarkon is probably going to be a QMX with a very small battery, antenna, mast, and CW key, and a 4.5 amp hour battery. And then I probably take my
HT.
Garmin Messenger and an HT. Yep, that's going to
Yep.
be my deal. So it'll be fun. I think it'll be good. I haven't done the Ozarks, so it'll be fun to activate them. And Gary and Martha will be there, and I think we might actually even do a summit with them together. But there's going to be several people out there and having a good time. And then, of course, the Ozarkon conference will be great as well.
Yep, I'm looking forward to that. I've never activated anything that far east. I've only been into New Mexico, so I'm really looking forward to that. It'll be a lot of fun. But that's kind of, what my bag is. Most of the comments that I hear that things very rarely even get drug out of your bag to be inspected a little bit more if it looks like amateur radio equipment. So that's kind of the feedback that I've gotten lately.
Yeah, I think the only other time I've ever had a problem, this might have been in the US, my dipole, because it's just a huge bundle of wire inside the bag. And
Yeah.
I had them open it up, and as soon as, well, the guy asked me, what's this? He was showing me on the thing, and I'm like, it's a wire antenna for HF. And as soon as I said those things, I either short circuited him, or he just decided that it wasn't worth his time to open the bag, because that was the end of it. He just handed it to me, and I moved on. Plus, I think I was also wearing the monkey suit, so that, and for those that don't know what that is, that's the pilot uniform. I was wearing the pilot uniform, so I think that might have been it as well. So who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the questions that I had is what will they think of the wire antenna? And I guess that's just going to come down to who you get that day. But I mean, I've never heard anybody complain that they've had to get rid of their.
The only advice I'd give to you is just make sure that you have your bag. If for some reason you get forced to gate check your bag, just make sure the battery is someplace where you can get it out of the bag, because they don't want the battery in the luggage
un,
hold.
yeah, under
So
the
so
aircraft.
yeah, so if for some reason your bag, just make sure anything that's got to be removed from the bag, or would potentially be removed from the bag, is something that you can just open a single zipper and pull it right out. That way you're not blowing up your suitcase in the jetway, and everybody's looking at your polka dotted underwear.
Yeah. So it should be interesting. I'm looking forward to traveling with amateur radio equipment for the first time, and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, should be a fun trip. All right, guys, I think that brings us to the end. I really appreciate your preparation and bringing some interesting topics to us today. Thanks to everybody who has been listening and who has subscribed to the channel and follows along with us. We really appreciate you, and we will, catch you on the next episode. So with that, I'll say 73 and give you guys an opportunity to say bye as well.
73, everybody.
73, everybody.
All right, see ya. Bye.